I'm Cindy Briggs, and this is Soldier's Heart. Every Thursday morning, a group of veterans gather at a local restaurant for coffee and donuts. It draws a diverse crowd, men and women from World War II on up. I like to eavesdrop on the old salts as they swap stories, tell jokes, and compare notes on their experiences at the VA. This is how I met Bill Kirkman. Dressed in overalls, a worn cardigan sweater, and a red ball cap, he looked every inch the farmer he'd been for 7 decades. He was a slow-talking storyteller with a sly sense of humor.
But I've been over to the Veterans Hospital now. They're real nice over there. They're supposed to have me a hearing aid. Made me think of the man that got one, and he went back for a checkup, and the doctor said, what'd your family think of you getting a hearing aid? He says, I haven't told them yet, but I've changed my will twice.
The first time I met Bill, he told me a joke in that same deadpan way. It took me a moment to realize he was kidding. I'd felt nervous about meeting him. It was something about the fact that he'd fought in the Marines in the Pacific during the Second World War. The Marine Corps shrouds itself in a particular mystique, an intensity that doesn't fit conveniently into any aspect of the civilian world. It felt closed off to me, like a secret society. I hoped Bill might be able to open that door just a little so I could glimpse what was on the other side. I went to Bill's farm to interview him on November 22nd, 2016. It was a cold day, overcast and damp. The heater was on full blast inside his modest home to beat back the chill. Bill was slow to warm to the interview, a new experience for me. Most of the veterans I interview from World War II are ready and willing to tell their stories. But Bill had no intention of spending his words frivolously. What made you decide to enlist in the Marines?
I thought it was the best outfit to go in.
Yeah?
And still do.
Yeah. Bill explained that he quit high school in 10th grade to join the Marine Corps. He was sent to Parris Island, South Carolina for boot camp, where new recruits have been trained since the facility opened in 1915. Urban Dictionary says of Parris Island, there is no quitting, there is no escaping, there is only discipline. Marines are made here. As for Bill and his experience in boot camp, well, he kind of liked it.
Everybody said it was real tough, but I'd farmed all summer. Pretty full day. It was in an old wooden floor building. We'd get up in the morning and scrub the floor with brushes. And then go to chow or run and go to chow. Eat them southern grits. I enjoyed those grits because the Yankees wouldn't make out like they wasn't going to eat them. About the second day, they'd pass the plate. Can I have a little more?
Bill was the very first Marine I interviewed. I'd met veterans who served in every other branch of service during the Second World War, but Marines were elusive. One reason, there weren't many of them. By the end of the war in 1945, there were about 500,000 active duty Marines. That sounds like a lot, but it was only 4% of the total fighting force at the time. In comparison, there were over 11 million Army and Navy service members at the end of the war. There's a culture to the Marine Corps that I'm both intrigued and intimidated by. Bill explained it to me.
They depended on one another a lot more. If you didn't like a man, you didn't feel bad about taking him into combat. You know he'd look out for you, you was looking out for him. They worked together. And each one was trained to the point that if the one ahead of him got killed, he moved up and took over.
Also, Marines saw particularly heavy combat, which makes the memories harder to bear and even harder to talk about. During our interview, Bill described the Marine presence on Tinian Island, where the Enola Gay, the plane that dropped that first atomic bomb on Hiroshima, took off. I asked if the Marines were the first on that island. He replied, "The Marines were first on every island." Bill revealed few details about his time in the Pacific during World War II, except this one: his service on burial duty on Saipan after a massive 3-week battle in the summer of 1944. Of the 71,000 Marines and soldiers who landed on that island, almost 3,000 died.
Coming down the mountain, coming off of Saipan, the first time going to Okinawa is when it hurt me. I guess they've moved all of them. I don't know whether they have or not. I was on some military funerals, and you was never allowed to open the casket. What was in it, I don't know. Of course, I'm sure the bodies went to bad. It's probably just the bones, if they had the right ones. But when you take a body, you had to leave a guard with it all the time. They couldn't open it.
It was another Marine, my friend Dan, who taught me how to shoot a rifle. I asked him to teach me both because I wanted a glimpse into the Marine Corps, but also because I wanted to understand the lure of firearms. I wasn't around guns growing up, but my granddaddy and all his brothers knew how to shoot. They grew up as farm kids, so they hunted for food. In the Army, my granddaddy earned sharpshooter medals, and he kept his Army-issued sidearm in the nightstand beside his bed, along with a box of ammunition, for the rest of his life. Once a soldier, always a soldier. Dan first attended the Naval Academy, then joined the Marine Corps after graduation. This was during the height of the Iraq-Afghanistan war. He was stationed in Japan, but felt like a member of the B team. He extended his service an extra year to experience Iraq. He wanted to be in the thick of it. He got his wish, and his experiences marked him for life. During his tour, he was stationed at HQ deploying troops. Even though he wasn't officially in combat, the mortar fire and constant fear of ambush stressed his system to the breaking point. Dan sees post-traumatic stress disorder as a trauma of the soul and believes the healing needs to be deep. I tell him about Granddaddy, how he seems so unscathed by his experiences in the war, so full of grace. Dan reminds me that where there is great light, there is also deep shadow. It is in the shadows where we store our biggest secrets, our regrets, our shame. Before he teaches me to shoot, Dan first explains the relationship between Marines and their weapons. Whether a cook, a mechanic, or an aviator, a Marine is a rifleman first. This is the rifleman's creed.
This is my rifle. There are many like it, but this one is mine. My rifle is my best friend. It is my life. I must master it as I must master my life. My rifle without me is useless. Without my rifle, I am useless. I must fire my rifle true. I must shoot straighter than my enemy who is trying to kill me. I must shoot him before he shoots me. I will. Before God, I swear this creed. My rifle and myself are the defenders of my country. We are the masters of our enemy. We are the saviors of my life. So be it, until victory is America's and there is no enemy but peace.
Then Dan explains bone stability, how when you're kneeling to shoot, you put your elbow not on your kneecap but on the meat of your thigh. Bone on bone isn't stable. He also explains the natural respiratory pause at the bottom of a breath. At that point, the body is still and your aim is most true. He shows me how to hold the rifle, the butt snug against my shoulder. I breathe in and out. I pause. I practice squeezing the trigger. It's like meditation, like prayer. Before we head to the range, there is one more lesson. He explains how Marines handle their weapons with confidence. During inspection, when the commanding officer takes the rifle from the Marine, there cannot be, will not be, any fumbling. The weapon is taken and given with clear purpose. He hands me the rifle and shows me how to hold it just as I would if I were a member of the infantry. Then my sweet friend becomes the Marine Corps captain he used to be. His entire energy shifts and he marches toward me with precision and purpose. My gaze immediately drops from his, landing somewhere around his collarbone. My mouth goes dry, utter submission. It's how it has to be in the Marines. In battle, there is one top dog, and right now, it is Dan. Like Dan, Bill found his time in the Marines extended by an extra year, but not of his choosing.
We thought when the war was over, Lord, we was coming home. But then we drawed a year in Japan. That kind of... But I'm glad I did. I got to see it. The people were nice people. I mean, they didn't want war, the average person in Japan. The families, they didn't want war. Or said they didn't. And I had 2 or 3 families up there in the mountains. We'd stop and have dinner with them. They had buried all their food, afraid we'd take it away from them. But the ones around the city didn't have no food. When we took our garbage out from Nagasaki, they told us to bury it, but we just set it down and them kids and all come up there and eat every bit of it. They were hungry.
In spite of Bill's obvious empathy for the people he met in Japan, like many veterans, he never quite forgave them. Toward the end of the interview, he reminded me that he never owned a Japanese car, nor would he. But he had no regrets about joining the Marine Corps and described how it changed him as a person. Did you have any trouble with your nerves when you got back?
Well, I lived here by myself, and but the first year I never slept in bed. I'd sleep in the corner here and the corner over there, and you could step on the front porch and I'd just like that.
You just wake up just like that. Bill, how do you feel that being a Marine changed you as a person?
A lot of confidence. you become a man pretty quick. Nearly everyone you'll ask will tell you he is proud to have been a Marine.
Reflecting on the decades that have passed since the war, Bill acknowledged that the number of veterans still alive is dwindling rapidly, and that his own time was running short. Who were some of your best buddies when you were in the Marines?
They're all dead. And it won't be long till there won't be none of us.
As we wound up our interview, Bill had one more story to tell. He described a conversation he overheard while at a veterans event in the town of King, North Carolina.
There was 2 Marines there, and we were sitting at a table talking, and an Army guy come over and said, "Not many Marines here." One of them boys up there turned around and said, "Well, it don't take many Marines to get the job done."
William H. Kirkman, Jr., my friend Bill, died on June 26, 2019. Soldier's Heart is written and produced by me, Cindy Briggs, and features veteran stories from North Carolina. We honor vets by listening to their stories. You can follow along on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Soldier's Heart NC. If you have an idea for a story or interview, email us at soldiersheartnc@gmail.com. Special thanks to the New Winston Museum of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where all of these stories are archived. You can learn more about the museum at newwinston.org.